Bishop David, you've had a lifelong commitment to reconciliation. Can you tell us how that shaped your ministry?
I always believed, Phil, that if I had a commitment to reconciliation, I should attempt to pursue that in a very mainstream place, not in a place which seemed sympathetic or easy. And it came about just in the way that God works. It came about that I found myself as rector of a large congregation in a place called Portadown, which is in the very middle of Northern Ireland, and which became known across the world as the place where the Orange Order parading disputes at Drumcree took place, and that dominated my life for the best part of 10 years.
Can you tell us about the key point of conflict in your parish?
There was a march of the Portadown Orange District and others to a Church of Ireland church at Drumcree for a service. And in particular, what was particularly contentious was a march back to Portadown at the end of that. The Orange Order would have held that that was not just an Orange Order event, it was also a commemoration of the heavy, heavy losses suffered by the Ulster Division on the first days of the Battle of the Somme in 1916. So therefore it was a First World War commemoration as well. The reason why it became contentious was, as has happened in many places, demographic change. What 20 or 30 years ago had been a country road on the outskirts of Portadown had become a heavily populated area with a majority Catholic population. So what had been an unexceptional event a generation before became a heavily contested event in the 1990s. And it was that led to the entrenching of this particular conflict. I think the other thing that I learnt about it, and I remember standing in the middle of the Garvaghey Road and learning this, was that one could hope for political progress in a place like Northern Ireland, and in the end, political progress did happen. The Belfast Agreement was negotiated, and with a lot of difficulty, the Belfast Agreement has stood the test of time. But what is really difficult is to deal with issues of symbol. You can negotiate political structures, but by definition you cannot negotiate with symbolism. It's just there. And people in the end feel that is who I am, and if you want to take that away, you are actually taking away who I am, where I come from, what my identity is, what my fathers and forefathers stood for.
What do you think are the main dangers to ongoing reconciliation after the signing of peace agreements and accords and such things?
I think I'd say this in response, Phil, that the danger in situations like Northern Ireland, where I worked primarily in the Protestant community in South Africa with the Afrikaner community, is that, and I found this when I went to South Africa, part of the commonality was that each of those communities believed at a very deep level that they were losing. And where people believe that they are losing, they experience and express a grief reaction, and they often express that grief reaction in anger, as is part of any bereavement. And I think what Nelson Mandela was doing was reaching out to a group of people who believed that that their community, their traditions, their identity was deeply at risk. And he was saying to them that that was not so, that they had a part to play in the new South Africa.
David, we've been looking together at this photograph of Nelson Mandela handing over the Rugby World Cup to Francois Pienaar. What do you make of this photo?
I've been profoundly affected by that photograph, Phil, as I have been profoundly affected by both by the film Invictus and by a number of visits which I've made to South Africa. I think that the test, one of the real tests of leadership, particularly political leadership in a situation like South Africa or Northern Ireland, is whether the leader who will inevitably emerge from one community or the other can actually commend themselves to the other community. And what this picture is about, for me, is about Nelson Mandela managing to transcend the limitation of arising from one community and to commend himself to the other community. In this case, partly doing it by literally putting on the clothes of the other community. And it seems to me that is another piece of drama which expresses a profound truth about how you actually live and promote reconciliation.